This is the Second Studio, hosted by the Architecture and Design Office fame. My name is David Lee, and with me is Marina Borderonay. The two of us are architects, partners at the office, and of course, hosts of the show. And today our guests are Kirk Lauterbach and Christine Kegel.
Kirk and Christine are the owners of Blue Alpine Builders, a high-end general contractor based in Lake Tahoe and Bishop, California.
With Kirk and Christine, we talk about their background and how the two of them work together to run a general contracting business that provides a very high-level service to their clients. So we also touch on the sometimes not so great reputation that contractors have amongst homeowners and what they're doing to make sure that they're the exception to that. We also cover what it means to work with architects and what architects can do to be better team members in the overall process.
The interesting thing with them, too, is that there are obviously people who care very much about what they do, in terms of the finished product, but they pay a lot of attention to giving, the best service to their client in terms of like professional service, which I don't think we could say that from, every professional in our industry.
No. We talk about it in the recording, but it's difficult, right? Because so many professionals are dedicated to their craft, but then a lot of these service industry businesses forget, but you're still a service. You have the other half of it, which is servicing the people, making sure that they understand what's going on. So anyway, we dive into all of that. It was a great conversation. It goes by quickly. And there's probably going to be a part 2 to this one, but I don't know when that's going to happen. So for now, sponsors.
This episode of The Second Studio is brought to you by BQE Core, the all-in-one firm management software built for architects. Designed by architects for architects, Core helps you track time effortlessly, manage projects seamlessly, and get paid faster so you can focus on design, not spreadsheets. With powerful automation and real-time insights, it's everything you need to run a smarter, more profitable firm. See how BQE Core can transform your practice by clicking the link in our show notes.
The Second Studio podcast is sponsored by Autodesk. Do you know about Autodesk Forma? Available standalone or as part of their AEC Collection software bundle, it's a specialized AI-assisted 3D design tool that can transform early project planning. With Forma, you can rapidly model multiple massing options at the start of your projects and analyze the embodied carbon costs of different volumes, layouts, and material choices. You can then deepen your understanding of your sites by incorporating real-world contextual data for daylight, wind, noise, and more. Start your projects right with Autodesk Forma. Check out the link in our show notes to learn more. This is The Second Studio with Marina and myself and our guests, Kirk and Christine. Here we go.
I grew up right outside Yosemite. We were in the mountains. My backyard was up against thousands of acres of just like the foothill oaks and shrubs and stuff. And like I could walk around my property with like a 22 and shoot rabbits and birds or whatever, I wasn't, a city kid by any means. I think I had a very different childhood than Christine.
Yeah, I grew up in Florida.
That's right.
Which some people are surprised by, but I think a Florida to California transplant is a pretty common move for a lot of people. But I really appreciate and have a lot of nostalgia for this state because it's steeped in history. I mean, it has some of our oldest cities in the States. And I grew up in Tampa, which has, it was one of the main thoroughfares for the railroad at the time. And so it's got a lot of history up and down the Gulf Coast there. But then where I went to college, I was near its sister city of St. Augustine, which has, it has forts that are made of seashells over there. And some really, really, really old Spanish influence, French influence, a lot of the different people that would come to conquer, and then it would change hands over the course of infighting. And we have a large indigenous population. So Florida to me always, when I think of it, I think of really old Florida, and it's just an old state.
Yeah, that's like the opposite of what we see in the media, which is like just chaos.
I know. Yeah. I think I'm a little bit romantic in thinking about it. I mean, I grew up in a swamp, so the swamp has its own kind of mystery and superstition about it that I kind of lean into. I went to Disney and, spent plenty of time in Orlando, and Tampa has Busch Gardens. So I'm like very much steeped in like the touristy part of Florida too, but that's not kind of what I think about it when I think about growing up there and some of the parts that I love about it. But then moving out to California, I mean, by way of like Colorado, Utah, Washington, a bunch of states in between, everything here feels fair. I'm sure Marina, you can attest to this. Everything here feels fairly young and new.
Yeah.
The gold rush is kind of the oldest you get. And a lot of those towns are just ghost towns. Like they're not continuous. So yeah, it's been, Kirk's taught me a lot about the West Coast since I've been out here for, 10 plus years or so.
It is a very young-minded state. That's for sure the case. Like when we were in New York, after being there for a period of time, you start to pick up on kind of the oldness, for lack of a better word, kind of like the conservativeness of New York, the old money vibe. In the case of the city, being in the city itself and surrounded by finance bros, it's like a different mindset on the West Coast. It's kind of like you can reinvent yourself tomorrow and it's acceptable, and everyone is trying to do that, and you can turn on a dime. It's not no one looks at you like, why are you being weird and funky? It's just accepted, especially in Los Angeles and San Francisco, I think.
Traditions are still being formed out here.
Yeah.
The East Coast states all have deep rooted personalities, and people will die for those personalities. They're very die hard identifiers on the East Coast, but out here, I like the reinvention aspect of California.
So, Kirk, your dad was a contractor. Is that how you got into all this? Did you know from a young age that you would be doing what you're doing now? And same for Christine.
Yeah, I don't, I would say no. So I've always enjoyed, like as a kid, I enjoyed being on job sites with my dad. My memories of that though are he would just bring me to work, during the summer, and I would I don't know, like he would sometimes set up the backhoe and be like, here, dig a hole right here, so that was fun. But my mom was a doctor, retired now. She's still alive. She's just not a doctor anymore. But everyone in our family went to college. So I was like, I think I'm going to go. My thought was like, oh, I'm going to go to college and then I'm going to end up in San Francisco or Seattle. Like I like moody weather. I like the rain. I don't know. That was just what I thought. The way I actually got into it was that I did go to college and then I graduated, and I got a science degree. And even in college, it took me 5 years, I think, to graduate because I kept bouncing around between majors. I just couldn't lock myself into, I'm going to be happy doing this for the next 30 years or whatever, 40 years, And so when I graduated with the science degree, I made a poor effort trying to use it. Instead of walking at my graduation, I hit the road. I still really like to climb, and I went on a climbing trip and slowly made my way to Bishop and then Tahoe. And I reached out to some organizations, and they're like, well, yeah, that's great that you have that pretty college degree. You can go count, weeds in the middle of Nevada, and you can do that for 6 months for $5 an hour or whatever. And so because I'd always worked with my dad during the summers, I had hand tools, and I could any town, there's a place to swing a hammer. And so I was doing that for a while, still intending to maybe go back to school or get a little, just not present like a fresh grad going into these places. I thought maybe if I was like 28 and I had a little life experience and could present to some company, like, I have this degree and I'm passionate about this. Like, now will you take me seriously? And I just I never made the move. And I kept moving around too, because I think I just have always had wanderlust a little bit. And so, moved around from Tahoe, Washington, Colorado, Utah. And in all those, I just would pick up, find a construction crew the next day, and then I could leave at the end of the season, or I'd stay for a year or whatever. The way that I got into it was I was working for a contractor who wasn't paying me. And it was kind of like a robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of situation. And I think there was some money issues. I don't really know. I don't care. But I had one of his clients come out one day, and they started yelling at me. And they're like, I know it's not your fault, but we owe him a lot of money, and we're really glad to see you here. But like, we can't, we can't give him any more money. Can we pay you directly? And I was like, he owes me money too. Sure. If you want, I'll finish your job. So
yeah, that works.
Yeah. And so I did that, and I ended up picking up 2 or 3 of his clients, because I was still like, well, I don't know. Maybe I was young and naive, but I was like, he's good for it. Nobody would just not pay somebody. Never did. But I picked up those clients, and I realized that I kind of liked it. And I think I gave myself like 6 months to like, okay, let's get a license, so this is all legitimate too, because these people are paying me. And I found, as much as I do like working in the field, as much as I do like building, I found running a business completely different. Like, I don't even think I think I'd be happy running multiple kinds of businesses, but the novelty of it, especially in construction, for somebody like me who has this wanderlust, I'm never going to have the same commute for 30 years. I'm never going to build the same house. I'm never going to like work with the same client, like all of that. There was just a lot of opportunity. And I think that's what excited me. And I think what allowed me to kind of slowly build the company too was I sort of fell into it. Like, I wasn't getting paid, and these clients kind of sort of hired me. And so the plan was never like, oh, I'm going to get rich and drive the big truck and blah, 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 blah. It was just kind of like, wait, now that I have this license number associated with me, like, I could get into like building log cabins, or I could get into just being a finished carpenter. Like, there was so many opportunities. And it also allowed me to curate who I work with, when we work, where we work. And that was kind of the carrot in front of me. So that's how that started.
I like that. That's wonderful. I like that description, because, I mean, obviously we're in it, but I never really thought of it that way, that, every project is so different. And I think for a lot of people, that type of lifestyle, let's call it, would be very, very unsettling, like the lack of routine, or that you have a routine kind of for a couple years, but even then every month is like radically different from the previous in a 2-year project span. And then it ends and you start a new thing. It's like it's kind of, it can be kind of torturous, and I don't think it's for everybody, but if you're the person that you are, you embrace that and you enjoy it, it's like, yeah, there's actually like a gold mine of things you can do.
You described it like not the same commute, not the same project. And I was like, oh, that sounds really good. And then I'm like, wait a minute, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But so when you first were approached by that client who was like, let me pay you directly, were you in California or were you in a different
I was in
state?
Washington.
During that time when you were kind of bouncing between states, were you primarily working as a carpenter, as a fish hard? What were you doing?
Depending on the state, it kind of depended on the crew. In general, I've kind of always latched on to GCs. So I would, do the foundation, frame, finish carpentry. That's kind of what my dad did. That's what I thought building was. I knew there were subs, but I kind of, we can get even more, break this down even more. I know for sure now that if I were to just be a framer or a foundation guy, like, that removes some of the novelty, because then I'm just doing the same thing every day, even if it's a different foundation or a different house. It's really nice to dig a foundation and then just be sick of coming home and emptying your boots out with dirt, and all of a sudden you start forming a foundation, then it's poured and it's backfilled, and you're like, ooh, let's roll some floor joists. And now you have like this platform and it's clean. And then by the time you're sick of framing and you're sick of compressors all day and like yelling across the job site, all of a sudden you're inside doing finish work and you got some nice music on and you hear little brad nails just and then by the time you're sick of like looking at every little nail hole with a magnifying glass, you're like, I can't wait to be done with this project. I just want to start digging again, where I can just run a machine and like your tolerance is 3 inches instead of
Yeah, demolish some shit.
But it's interesting to think about, like, from the sub's point of view, that that's true. Like, I've never thought about it. They come in, they just do the one bit of the job, and then they never come back to the site. They never see it finished. Like the guys who come and do the foundation, they come at the beginning and then they're gone. Like, they're never seeing the project after that. And it's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting
I guess if you enjoy it, you enjoy it, but it would be sort of like, I'm thinking for us, like if you were put on a team to work on a big tower, for example, and you were in charge of design the bathroom, and then that's it, and you walk away, you never really experience any in the rest of it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, for us at least, and same for you guys, the part of the gratification is seeing the whole thing get done in the different phases and steps
100%.
and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's difficult.
I think it'd be really hard for me, but you also earlier just mentioned how that the constant changing could be kind of stressful for certain people. And I think you're right. It's hard for me to imagine that kind of mindset though. Because I think whatever job I have without something new, novel in it, I think I would just burn out. I'd be like, I've mastered this and on to the next, I still have thoughts where I'm like, I could start a new business. Like, what would that business be? Like, I don't know. I like this. But...
Wait, so when did the two of you meet? Were you both together whilst, Kirk, you were hopping around different states doing stuff?
Shortly after. I think about 6 months after I graduated, I was working in Tahoe, and that's where we met.
Yeah, we met because we both were hopping around after school, and we had the like-minded wanderlust, as well as we're two very ambitious people, so we had big dreams, and I think our personalities just clicked. And so by the time we moved to Washington, that was kind of our make or break point of, okay, let's find a place to kind of put roots for a little while and build something, and Washington's a wonderful, wonderful state. I really enjoyed our time up there. But I knew kind of you always wanted to go back to California because it's in your blood. And I knew Tahoe was always the place that I wanted to be. I had visited it before, and within moments of getting out of the car and walking around, I was like, oh, this is my forever home. But I still had some places to explore. So I was like, I need to go live somewhere else. There are a couple more places I want to live before I move here permanently and put down roots permanently. But I don't think we really intended to start the business together. It just sort of fell into place with both of our experience and as well as just our interests aligned. When I met Kirk, he was building a teardrop trailer.
Yeah, cool.
Oh, gorgeous. I'll have to dig out a picture from the archives. But it was really pretty. It was wood clad on the outside. And then he had was it steel or aluminum? Something that you bent over the main curvature of it. And you just grinded a really pretty pattern into it. And it was, not like any other teardrop I've seen before. And I was like, oh, this guy's got style. He's got skill and he's got style. And I have a design background. That's what I went to school for. So I was drawn to that. And then I wasn't as handy in power tools as him, but I've always kind of worked in other mediums like ceramics, painting, stage, building stages for community theater, sewing. Once you kind of have that tactile, the experience of just working with your hands, I feel like a lot of people can kind of pick up other mediums pretty quickly. It's kind of inherently natural. And the rest is history. We just both kind of have the drive and really, really enjoy working together. I know you guys have that experience of
it depends on the day of the week.
It's an interesting thing though of how people start working together, especially when they're couples, because I'm sure you guys get asked this question all the time, like, how do you do it? And my opinion is that, well, I think if you're a couple and you're trying to work together, it either works or it doesn't. I don't think there's a lot of gray area between those two sides. If not, it quickly gets figured out that it's not you're not compatible in that manner. But yeah, no, I mean, it's worked for us, and it clearly works for you guys. I guess another question on that note is, I guess there's two ways to this to ask this question. Are there specific roles and responsibilities you each have that are different? And also maybe more on the personality side of things, are there ways that you two are complementary and integrate with each other, where one has a weakness and a strength that the other, doesn't have?
100%. Yeah.
Oh, definitely.
I was going to say, it's funny, the first few times I got asked, what's it like working with your partner? How do you, I was kind of like taken aback. I was like, what do you mean? Like, she's my best friend. Like, why would it not be? And then I realized, like, oh, this could go very south for other couples. But I think it's always going to be evolving. But I did start it, and then Christine kind of came in, and I think part of why she came in was we were just working on a job that, for whatever reason, the homeowners didn't really like who the architect I don't even know if they were an architect, but they didn't like them. And so they didn't want to pay them anymore. They wanted to cut them out, but then they still wanted to finish it. And Christine has this design background. So she kind of came on to just work out fixtures. She drew up elevations for the kitchen, bathroom, and stuff like that. And would, so the tile guys had something, electricians had something, and it like worked really well. Like all of a sudden we had this really clean line of communication and goal for every room, for every sub that I know they do it for bigger construction companies or commercial jobs, but I would never be able to put that together. I don't have that kind of bandwidth. Now, so that's how that kind of happened. Now I think what we're doing, or what seems to work well, is because of where we work in the mountains, especially in Tahoe, but even down here on the east side, snow is kind of a big problem, especially for digging. And so we really only have that 5-month window to dig. And what's worked the last few years is that I'll bounce to digging a foundation, getting that in, and kind of taking a project through structural. And Christine kind of takes over at that point for a lot of the finished stuff. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And I'm still around. It's really, really comforting to have a foundation and going into winter, because then you can frame in the winter.
In Tahoe, there's specific restrictions to preserve water quality and prevent runoff in certain times of year with the snow melt. So we have a limited window from May through October, and it's your head will spin during those months because we're trying to do so much.
And I want to reemphasize to the people listening that May to October,
it's short.
Think about that. Yeah. It's not very long for everybody to be doing digging.
That, and then consider the size of the town it is. There's not that, because that small window, that's not a trade that you can just, nobody's going to move to Tahoe and be like, I'm going to dig foundations year round. You can charge a lot because of this short window. You have to make your annual income. But a lot of those people, even then, I don't think they do. And, they'll do snow removal or something in the winter. But May 1st, good luck being first on the list for anybody to dig for you. You can be, but it's just a smaller town. We're not pulling from the population of Sacramento or LA. So one thing that we've done is just invest in heavy equipment, and then we don't have that problem.
Nice. I'm sure that's a lot of fun too, to like buy a bunch of cool stuff. That's what I'm thinking about. I mean, the client's logistics, fine, whatever. I would buy stuff.
There's so many times where like a buddy will be like getting a hot tub delivered or like something. I'm like, you know what? I think I need to bring the machine over and we can just fly that thing into the backyard. He's like, you don't need to do that. And I'm like, no, I need to do that.
Yeah. So it's interesting, like the two different backgrounds, right? So Kirk, you let's say come from construction in a sense. Christine, more the design aspects and design not in the traditional, building categories. And so that's how you first started to work together. But these days, are you still wearing the design hat, Christine, or are you doing more of what a GC does, but on the back half from after framing and forward? Or are there other more managerial things that you're involved with? Again, going back to the kind of the chemistry between the two of you.
It's so fluid. I mean, as a business owner, you're kind of wearing all of the hats, right? And Kirk certainly brings the builder knowledge and is the expert there. I just kind of have opinions about design and am more of the customer service, project management facing personality. Kirk's great with clients too. I'm not saying
stay behind the curtain,
one over
Kirk.
the other. But I think I have I've worked in offices before project managing, so I bring just more of a corporate professional background to this field, which I think for a lot of our clients, especially in Tahoe, coming out of the Bay Area or something, they really respond well to that versus maybe a contractor in a more traditional sense. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, the clients just started asking us our opinions about, oh, do you like this color over this color? Or which, exterior light fixture do you like better? You think goes with the house better? And I didn't hold back. Yeah. I just freely gave my opinions, and I found that was a slippery slope because all of a sudden people were like really relying on me. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm designing your house for free here. Right. So
ad service.
I have, when we meet clients, we like to present as a team, and kind of upon first impression, that's one of the things we like to, hone in on is Kirk brings this expertise to it, but then I have this expertise. I'm very organized, computer savvy. We'll meet you where you are in terms of your communication preference, because those are a lot of the things I think about is just how to make this process smoother for a client. I'm sure you guys are. Have more developed methods than maybe a traditional general contractor would, because that is what you do. And I think you have more time to think about that when you're kind of sitting behind a computer looking at like spreadsheets and the bird's eye view versus in the field trying to yell over all the loud noises and follow up on how come this guy no called today kind of thing. So we, we're in constant communication. We're both involved at the project from the start through to the end, even though our primary FaceTime with the client ebbs and flows depending on what stage of the project we're in. And then, I have experience with design software, Adobe Creative Suite and Figma and a bunch of others that I've used in the past for the work I was doing before this company. And I've noticed those skills mapped really well to some of the interior software. I mean, even just Photoshop, like photoshopping mood boards and that kind of thing. I discovered a program, Rayon. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's a lot like the Figma interface, where it's kind of like a Google Docs for design, where multiple people can be in the same document live, and it auto saves and updates. And so it's a really collaborative. I haven't used it with an interior designer or an architect yet. I've just used it kind of in my own little bubble, but it feels so intuitive to me. And it's where I've started to kind of learn how to, output a lot of elevations for both our finish carpenters and tile people and that kind of thing, but also be able to communicate visually in a more precise way with a client, because you guys understand every client's different in how much they can visualize or conceptualize. Some people just like don't have a mind's eye and they just can't see what you're describing. And so you have to show them. but we just try to be a resource, really. I see ourselves as, David, I know you're huge on educating clients. And so I really follow that philosophy too, where this is such a complicated process. I mean, even Kirk and I are learning new stuff all the time with when codes change, with when we work in the county versus the city, just working in, inside the basin versus out of the basin. Everybody has like a different way of doing stuff. And so we are more familiar with the language and working within those regulations and official capacities that the homeowner has a busy life. They don't really care about all the, nitty gritty stuff. And so I'm giving them the TLDR and I'm like, okay, here's what's important. Here's why maybe this costs more than we initially anticipated. But, I want you to trust us and know that you're in capable hands, because there's a uphill battle with often with the reputation of contractors. Rightfully so. There's enough that are trying to take advantage of people, but this is you guys have talked often on your podcast about how this is a multi-year relationship, often depending on the size of the job, and you're building something together. It's inherently a collaborative process. Like, it just doesn't work if people don't approach it that way. Yeah. That's where you get people complaining about, oh, they had this horrible experience, or, oh my gosh, this building a house like turned them gray and gave them a heart attack. Like those kind of things. It's, it's like any good project management experience. Like, there needs to be someone that sees all the moving parts and knows how to kind of distill that and communicate that effectively, so that not everybody has to see the bird's eye view. Yeah. But they do need relevant information. I mean, subs need to be able to coordinate with each other, and different designers on the job need to be able to work together and coordinate with each other for it to be like a truly cohesive project, and not kind of a house where, oh my gosh, all the rooms just feel off for some reason because nobody told the other person, like, hey, this is what's happening over here. Also, it cuts down so much on all the, once drywall goes up, like, oh, we need to move this outlet over here. Or we need, nobody told somebody that this was going to be a wall faucet versus like coming out of the countertop. Right. Like the first couple jobs I observed, I was just trying to pinpoint, like, oh, what kind of stuff is relevant at what stage of the job, and then how do we catch that in time so that there's just less at the end of the finished work. Because I'm often, if Kirk starts the jobs with excavation through structural, I often finish the jobs, and so I'm there for all the punch lists and the warranty work, and the end of the job when everybody's burnt out and they just want to move in. And so for my sake, I'm like, how do I make that easier on myself and make the like handoff go more smoothly? And it often starts really early.
It's interesting. There's a lot of stuff there to unpack, but I like maybe one of the first points you made about the, let's call it the communication aspect of acting as a general contractor. And it's one of the aspects of most GCs that they're lacking in. So like when we're speaking with new clients and they're asking for recommendations for GCs, or they're doing their own research and they've heard from so-and-so that this individual is good, but that individual has like no website and they seem kind of gruff, or, all the other kind of typical things. I'm like, well, first of all, I'm skeptical that there are any good contractors if I haven't heard of them. but also, like, just because they don't have a website and just because they lack communication skills doesn't mean they don't know how to build things of quality. But is that indicative of their of what it's going to feel like to work with them as a partner? Yeah, possibly. And I think you're right. Like, being a GC and doing the work itself is all consuming. The idea that as a GC, you would also have to, quote, on top of that, layer on, how do I actually interface with clients, give them information they need when they need it,
be nice to work with, be timely, be organized, all that stuff. I know for a lot of GCs feels like a quote extra burden because they're like, I'm just trying to get this done and like not, have people get hurt on the site and whatever else. But the reality of, I think a lot of professionals in the service industry feel the same way. I know architects also feel the same way. Like, I'm just trying to do the work. I don't care about, making the clients feel good. But the reality is, if you have a business like you do and we do, that's like 50% of the job. And I think it's really interesting for the two of you that you spend so much time thinking about it and solving that part of having the business and being a good GC. Because, the reality is for a lot of homeowners, that's like, or clients rather, that's maybe even more than 50% of it for them. They might not be able to discern a super high quality build versus a good build, but they can definitely discern whether or not someone's easy to work with. And if they're kind and on top of things and they're, honest with their billing or, whatever else it might be.
But I think it goes back to what Christine, you were saying, like consumer customer service, basically. Like we often think about this term and like, I don't know, retail or like when you go buy something and you need to return it, like you need customer service. But it's really the service you're doing to any customer in any business. And I think it is, you're right, like as important as the service itself. Like the thing that they're buying from you is that interaction, and then like how do you communicate and then you interact with them. Mm-hmm. And you're right. I mean, sometimes it's like a couple years long relationship. So you're gonna talk to each other like at least once a week, maybe multiple times a week. You want that exchange to be fluid, to be honest, and kind of like in a way unfiltered to the point where you feel comfortable giving a call if you have a doubt or something you're not sure about, mm-hmm. or if you're concerned about something, rather than like not do that and have it snowball and burst at the end of the project. So.
Which it will happen.
It will happen in small or big bursts, but eventually it will happen.
Well, I've found from our experience, everybody has a different idea of what a GC is or does. Mm-hmm. And I think we've certainly interviewed clients before at some level where, they've hired us because they just want like a carpenter to boss around, or
right.
Maybe not.
Yeah.
They want to be in control of the job.
Yeah. They want labor.
But yes, exactly. They want labor and they want somebody that can do it all. And, I've had to kind of explain to people like, well, that's not what we do as a GC. If you want a framer, you can hire a framer, but that what you're describing is our job and why you would hire us. And if we clarify that early on in the project, then I find there's less assumptions being made and it's less contentious between people. It becomes almost a battle of ego or something where people are upset that we're charging from them for a service that they are trying to do themselves, and then they don't understand what our role is. And then we're kind of in a position where we're like, oh, well, you're not letting us do the job you hired us to do.
Yeah. And then when it doesn't go well, they're like, why didn't you do your job? You're like, what? You said you were going to do that.
That's the thing is we're certainly held liable for it all, but we don't necessarily get the trust aspect of it. Right. And, I'm really trying to build a business with Kirk where people understand that just by our reputation. I really want, I don't need to be famous or anything, but I want people to pick up right away that like, oh, you guys, the service you offer is elevated. I find value in it, and I want to pay you because I trust you to do this well, because I've either, seen Google reviews or looked at your previous work or listened to you on a podcast or, whatever avenue they find us. That's kind of what we're building towards.
Yeah.
And I think that's do
you think that also helps you guys not compete, but get jobs where maybe people will look to hire an older GC. Like when we started our businesses, we look like babies apparently still, which is good and bad, because then I know the idea of trust from a client is much harder to earn, because they just think you come out of school and you have no experience, and what would they hire you? Well, they could hire the guy that has only gray hair and has been doing that for 35 years, right? So I was wondering, do you think that the type of services that you are offering to your client actually helps you maybe get hired over older GCs that people would typically go to?
I do and I don't, because I started in my 20s. Same deal. I was like a baby. I still look young.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell when someone hires us and is expecting to hire us as labor, and then they're like, why isn't Kirk doing the foundation? I'm like, well, it's 100 yards of concrete. Like I think it'll be much faster and everyone will be much happier if we sub this out. Whereas if they had hired somebody with gray hair, which I don't know how I don't have gray hair, but they wouldn't say like, why isn't Steve, who's 65, why isn't he carrying form boards down the hill? So I'm fine with that assumption. But we're just clear about it. Like, we are a GC, and I think it's just been a few instances where, we were talking about communication earlier and expectations, where, each client has their own personality and their own expectations. And we can have our own workflow, but we do need to cater it towards theirs. And so every once in a while we're like, oh, there's a little bit of, ageism going on here. And it's what it is. I had a thought about, you asked about communication. Oh, David, I think you said like that may be more than 50% of what the client cares about. And I 100%, I was young and naive, but I was smart enough to know when I got my license that being a good carpenter does not mean being a good business owner. I knew they were separate. And I think there's a lot of very talented carpenters, framers, whatever out there. Like you said, maybe they don't have a website, they don't have whatever. But I bet that a lot of that communication that the client wants is not going to happen. They're going to say, well, I don't have a website, I don't do computer stuff. And that's especially where we live, where a lot of clients are, on the east side, it seems like everybody's LA and it's their second home up here. Tahoe's San Francisco. If I'm hyper aware of how much money these projects cost when people are spending hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. I think it's fair that they get updates and communication.
That's a good way of putting it too, actually. Yeah.
I mean, you become
desensitized to these numbers.
I mean, you buy makeup at Sephora, you know where your package is until it gets to your door, and makes sense that if you build a house
and you're spending
you would know
100,000x.
Yeah, it's like it from the GC perspective, it feels like a lot. Because I am in the field all day. So when I come home, I don't exactly want to sit down and send an email. The email will take 10 minutes to write, 30 minutes to write if it's like a big update. But I also have to switch mode. I have to like come in with, like, I'm just dirty and I'm thinking about, I told the sub that I was going to grab something at the lumber. It's hard to switch modes. So it feels like a lot, but it's a very small ask. And the other thing too, people are going to remember how you mess up. They're not going to notice everything that you did well, because you're not going to notice that.
Of course.
If things are going poorly on the job and they're not getting an update, it seems way worse than if you just say like, you communicate. I think Matt Reisinger, you guys laughed. He's like, if you're interviewing contractors and they're saying, oh, no, none of my jobs have ever gone wrong. You guys like laughed about it. The 100%, like a sub is not going to show up.
That's a
storm
lie.
is going to come in.
What are you talking about, dude?
Yeah. You know, we've like we on our end have placed an order that didn't get placed past us, or like whatever stuff happens. There's just so many moving parts. And so I think all you have to do, clients can handle bad news if you just tell them the bad news. And it just, I think that's what people will remember. And it makes me feel happier too. Like, I don't ever want somebody to think I'm like hiding something or being secretive. So yeah, I think Christine is particularly good at that. Part of it is, I think, how her time is spent. There is a lot more time in front of a computer where she's in email mode.
Sure.
But I really think she, just as a soft skill, I couldn't do what she does in a lot of ways, so it's nice.
And now a quick break to thank the sponsors who support their second studio. This episode is brought to you by Chaos. They make award-winning design and visualization tools, and they're really pushing the boundaries with AI. Now, AI is shaking up the architecture and design world, and Chaos is taking a responsible approach. Their tools are built to help architects, designers, and visualization specialists to work faster and explore more ideas without replacing creativity. Basically, Chaos wants AI to make your imagination stronger, not take over. So you get to design with more freedom, create stunning visuals, and stay in control of your work. If you want to see what that looks like, tap the Chaos link in our show notes.
Dear architects, design leaders, and founders redefining the industry, if you want to shape not only buildings, but the business behind them, this is your moment. Future London Academy's Executive MBA takes you inside the boardrooms of Pentagram, Uber, Zaha Hadid Architects, and Google, where you'll master finance, strategy, and operations from the people who already excel at them. Study along peers transforming the industry worldwide, and do it all in just 9 intensive weeks over 1 year between London and California. The program is award-winning, transformative, and crafted for design and architecture leaders with 15 or more years of experience. If you're ready to grow your impact, apply now by tapping the Future London Academy link in our show notes.
Say goodbye to design-unfriendly spreadsheets. Programma, built by designers for designers, provides an integrated suite of tools for every phase of your project, from mood boards to advanced specification tools to project management. Seamlessly integrated, easily shareable, and always current, Programma reduces redundancy and minimizes costly errors. Share your work in a format that works for you, be it PDF, spec sheets, or online, branded client dashboards with always up-to-date specification details. Join interior design movers and shakers and start for free by clicking the Programma link in our show notes. Experience the difference with Programma, software built for interior design workflows.
It's a great mentality you both have toward all of this because, so I do want to talk about, Christine, and your experience and your expertise in this arena, but this part of the conversation also reminded me that when it comes to contractors working with architects too, right? So we've talked about contractors you guys working with clients, but when you're working with architects and the interior designers, as an architecture and interior design practice, we primarily are at a desk aside from site visits and going to showrooms and whatever. So when it comes to being a GC that is appealing to the other professionals you work with all the time, this layer of communication skill, let's call it, and the ability or the willingness to send an email or whatever is huge for us as architects and interior designers. So like when I meet a client and they're like, okay, I have this great GC, they're phenomenal, but they're pretty difficult to work with and they don't do emails. I'm like, then they're not phenomenal. Like, what are you talking about? Like, how are we going to do it? Look, if it's a really small project that we're doing as a favor, then like, whatever, bang it out. But if it's a large scale thing, like a ground up house or something, like how are we going to run, like projects can be thought of as businesses unto themselves. How are we going to run this new business, this project together for 18, 24 months if the guy never sends emails to me, is not willing to have conversation? Like how's that going to work? And how can he be great at his job if he doesn't do that? Like then he's a lone wolf in a team setting. It doesn't really make sense. So I think actually a lot of what you're saying is super appealing to architects as well. It's like, I want to have a GC who's willing to engage in the way that we need to be engaged with. Although architects sometimes it's like, maybe pick up the phone so you don't have to do an email. Do a quick FaceTime, get it done.
Yeah, this is
I was just going to say, I do really enjoy working with architects. I have he'll never listen to the podcast. My dad is like a classic old timer contractor who's like, the architects don't know what they're doing. The engineer doesn't know what they're doing. Like I'm out in the field and I see it. And so like growing up, I was like, my dad's just grumpy, but I was like, oh, I wonder what it's like. And the first time I worked with an architect, I was like, you mean you draw everything for me? I don't have to figure anything out. This is amazing. And I realized that what you just said, like I'm receiving 90% of my information, real information. I know there's phone calls, but like SKs and all elevation, all that stuff in email. And I'm sure half these contractors are just like, I don't do that, And so I'm sure it's I have to imagine it's pretty easy to make an architect happy if you're willing to look at their drawings and go, yes, this will work. Or, hey, it won't work for this reason. Here's a photo in the field and here's what I'm drawing up that will work. Like that's all that needs to happen. It doesn't need to be like,
oh, totally.
Battle.
Totally.
And actually, you can tell when GCs are not used to work with architects because it's like we did the drawings for ourselves. There's questions. I'm like, it's in the drawing, man. Just open the set, look at the page, and it's right there. And it's funny because it's great when GCs understand like the drawing set is a set of tools to help you build the thing that's been designed, right? Like as much as I enjoy drafting and drawing stuff and doing those pages, this is not the most exciting part of the job, doing like 100-page drawing set. So if I'm not doing it for myself, who am I doing it for?
But it's a funny thing because like I think what we're talking about is the mentality of a fair number of GCs is that it would be a huge deal for them to learn this new thing or, look at the email, open up the PDF, whatever it is. On the other hand, though, like, we've done a little bit of work with you guys before. And when we were in the pre-con phase, it was super seamless. It's like, I have this drawing. Let's look at it together. We have a phone call and we discuss, the how it could work, what we have, why it doesn't work. And in fact, to be honest, one of my favorite parts of what we do is to have, it sounds strange after post-pandemic, but have Zoom calls with other professionals and say, hey, let's figure this out. Like, tell me what's wrong with this. Tell me how we can fix it because I get to learn something. And so I think maybe it's sort of a generational thing too. But, I find those types of conversations to be very exciting. And so for the like-minded and right-minded people, it's not a burden, right? It's actually enjoyable to exchange that knowledge.
There's especially for, I'm sure Christine would agree. There's been more times than I can count where I do see something on the plans that, maybe it's in the finish phase. It's not urgent at the point. We're moving through the project and then we get to it. I'm like, how did you envision this? Because I've never seen this before, or like, this is how I thought it was going to go. And the architect's like, no. And they'll, they can send me like a rendering of it or something more in detail. Instead of fighting back by just asking like, what is this? I've learned so much more through like little pieces of knowledge, spread out over years, just here and there, just ask questions. Everything isn't like a personal attack. Everything isn't. So it's really, because you asked about how we started the business, and I was thinking, growing up, my favorite part of my dad's office was all of his plans. I just loved seeing them all drawn out, and he had a drafting table. I think he drew a lot of plans up. And my grandma, probably both my grandparents, but I know my grandma loves architecture. She loves to talk about it. And I wanted to do that, but she was like, architects don't make any money, so don't go into that industry. So I never did.
Smart lady.
She knew.
Yeah. And so now I don't have to pay for it. I get to ask you guys, I work with professionals who did all the work for me. So
You're leading vicariously.
Though our liability is a lot less.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So actually, I have a question on that. So for you both, what are the ideal traits of an architect / interior designer that you would work with? Or are there things that you see that are common shortcomings that you would prefer to have rectified?
That's a great question.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I thought about this. I was like, I hope David doesn't ask that. I have some thoughts on it, but I had that thought and I was like, oh, I don't want him to ask that. But I was like, that's actually the best question. Like, this is the time to have the conversation. So David, now's the time. No. I'll let Christine take. The architect we're working with right now in June Lake it feels like the ideal client and architect situation. I'll trying to keep it short. He's willing to compromise. And I don't mean he's like slacking off. Like, he talks a lot about like building and designing within constraints, like, don't just add more colors to the palette. Like, let's keep it at 3 and like, let's see what we can do with it. Let's keep it simple and novel at the same time. And I think I've seen projects just more often than not take off because the architect and owner aren't willing to compromise on the design and the cost and all that, because ultimately it'll come down to us. And I think that I've seen really cool designs that I would like to do, but like, I can't compromise on the price because it's not my project. It's not my money. I think that's kind of the only thing. And that doesn't even really speak to my experiences working with clients working with architects, because those have taken off, those have started. The things that I really enjoy about working with architects is how much time you've put into it and how excited you are seeing the three-dimensional structure. Because my favorite jobs are the ones where the clients or the architects or both are as excited about it as I am. Especially early on, we definitely had clients who were like, we have 3 grandkids. We just need more square footage of the house. We need an addition. Whatever's cheapest, who cares?
Yeah.
But when an architect's really excited about it, when a homeowner's really excited about it, like, because I'm excited about it, So
yeah,
I haven't really had bad experiences. I've just seen a lot of projects and I'm like, we could, value engineer this in certain ways, but no one's willing to do it. So I guess I'm going to just step out of the room now.
I've got some thoughts too. So speaking from some experience working with both interior designers and architects, we've had negative experiences before. A lot of it just kind of revolves around communication. That's a huge part of it. If you've got a bunch of different stakeholders involved in this project, and one of them is not giving a sign off or giving vital information, it can be really hard to, keep the project moving and deliver what we want to deliver to clients. And in a lot of cases, as the party that does prioritize communication, we're often the ones that give the bad news. It's not necessarily our news to give.
Yeah.
So, that takes a lot of practice. But also it feels a little bit like I don't like being the bad guy all the time, know? But I think I've had, I would think that a really important dynamic in the project relationship, triangle, square, however many people are involved, are the architect and the GC presenting as a united front. We've had instances where we have not known the architect when the clients called us, and we're strangers with the architect, and the client is like the main point of communication. And in some cases the architect hasn't been super engaged or maybe committed to seeing the project through. And so we're kind of left to work out some details with the clients ourselves. But I would think that if it is an architect who is really committed to their vision and wants to see this project through, it might be really helpful just to have some casual coffee dates or something with the GC or the main point of project manager on that project, just to kind of learn how to relate as people and find that match, like find a good rhythm. And then I think presenting as a united front to the client will just go a lot smoother if you have that understanding about someone. I know when we're friends with the architect, or we become friends with the architect, or we know the architect and we introduce them to the client ourselves, it's a lot easier to kind of fall into a rhythm with a project and get excited about it that way. I would agree with Kirk. Another huge tension point is the natural scope creep that happens when you get excited about creating and you're in the beginning of a project. And specifically the last couple of years, it's been hard to nail down pricing just with how volatile it has cost to build it, the cost to build has been. And so we've experienced before where we've gotten plans from an architect and bid them for a client, and the client's like, wow, that was like double what I expected to pay, but I really still want to do this job. And it's been kind of a learning process to figure out how not to step on other people's toes. But we often make recommendations of like, oh, maybe instead of a full gut remodel, it's just a large kitchen remodel. Like we can still get you an update to your house and like really figure out why you even want this remodel in the first place. Like think about what the benefit would be to you, and let's distill like, okay, how do we make your money have the most impact, even if we do scale down the scope? Yeah. And they already have an established relationship with an architect. It's not always our place to kind of step in and do that, but you kind of feel it out case by case, like, if you guys are open to some suggestions, here's what we're seeing in terms of material pricing or just the availability of like certain trades and kind of what we're seeing in the market to help guide the direction of the project. Because I hate to see that standoff where an architect won't compromise on the grand scheme of their vision, or they're trying to hide costs somewhere else or omit costs of certain things to make the whole project look less than what it is. Yeah. And the homeowner is just like, well, I told you where my line was and I'm not crossing it. And then the project never gets realized. And that's sad, I think
what you're talking about too, where you're suggesting like your dollar amount can get you a new kitchen. That's sort of the nuclear option. That's when we're just looking at like, no one's compromising, the project isn't happening. But you got, David and Marina, you guys are probably asking that same question as like, why? Like, what do you want out of this? What do you want with this design? And Christine, I just know how to build. So like Christine asking that, all of a sudden she can get in the head and be like, this is what the client's looking for. Yeah. And this is what, with that knowledge and her, Christine's knowledge of costs, like, here's what we can get you. Is that going to work?
We spend a lot of time at the very beginning of a new relationship with the client, understanding their why motives. What's his name? His name's Simon. Fuck, what's his name? The guy who has I think he calls it the golden circle. And there's like a bullseye. The center of the circle is why, and the outer ring is how, and then the third outer ring is what. And it's like this idea that all those things are tied together, but the core of anything is the motivation, like the why you're doing something. And so we really try hard to get to the heart of that and understand a client's like true parameters, like what is your actual budget, your schedule, how, where are you flexible and not flexible. And we need to understand that stuff, because when it comes time to have those conversations about compromises, which will happen, because everybody has a budget, everybody has a schedule, everybody has, program requirements for minimums. we need to be able to offer solutions that are at least in the right direction of aligning with their mission statement. And actually, we tell clients at the very beginning, once we do our onboarding stuff, either we write or they write a mission statement for the project. And it's not to say that the mission statement is written in stone and it can't change, and that's what it is from now until 3 years later. But it provides a starting direction that we keep track of. And there's no other way for us to offer, first of all, even design anything that's of value unless we understand that. And for sure not be able to have conversations about how can we still achieve the goals or most of the goals while adhering to your budget. And it really comes down to budget most of the time, while adhering to your budget. And when it comes to the GC, it's like, this is also why I'm a huge proponent of having the GC be hired basically from the very beginning, because I also feel that even though the GC, quote, just builds what we draw, they don't really just do that. They need to understand the why of the project also, because for sure during design, during construction, there's gonna be bumps, hiccups, big problems, compromises, and the GC, if they don't understand the persons that they're working with, they can't offer answers that are of value because they were left out of the conversation for the first 6 months to a year whilst we were establishing a relationship with the client. So I feel like, a lot of it is just everyone being involved together and having each other's backs is kind of like I've thought about it a lot. I don't see any other way to like properly run a project and solve a lot of the issues we're talking about without being in a room together.
I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, the number of little moments that little compromises, or I guess what you're saying is by bringing in the GC early, the GC has an idea of what the tolerance and sensitivity is to the project and finishes and just kind of that feel of like, that's not going to fly. Because I've worked with people where I'm like, hey, can we move a door 2 inches, or whatever? And it's, no, that door is not moving. And others where they're like, yeah, just put it where it needs to go. But if you're just, that's a really good point.
And if you don't know them at all, you're like, I have no idea how this person's going to react to moving this door 2 inches.
And then you move it and you see if they notice.
That door's in the perfect position. Ha! You did not notice it moved. Liar.
That's a great point.
I find, like, in a real world example, I find, you naturally have conversations with clients throughout the job and at different stages, especially when bidding, because there's so many moving components. You give allowances for a lot of stuff, but you can only get so much information in the 2 to 4 week period that you're bidding over the course of a long-term job. So you're making your best guesses in a lot of situations, knowing there's going to be change orders and stuff that happen down the line. But for instance, we are working on bidding 2 jobs right now. One job, they're both in Tahoe. One job is for a family that comes up year round. So some stuff that they're adding is for, to make it cozier in the winter. I recommended heated floors in their bathroom. It wasn't something that the architect spec'd, but it was something that I was like, oh, this is a small investment that I think you're going to really enjoy. In contrast, the other job we're bidding right now is an addition for a cabin that they exclusively use during the summer. So I wouldn't make that suggestion because that's not going to be something that they'll probably use in the summertime. We're thinking more about, application. But if I was just approaching a job and client relationship as I'm going to do exactly what the plans say, you are not entirely servicing the client or the job because there's so much to think about. A lot of input from different professionals matters because everybody is thinking about, from their own experience, what they've seen and see is a good idea. And so, being kind of more aware of intention and big picture and knowing the family that's living there. Like all of that to me matters early on, so that we really feel I'm constantly wanting to make sure the client feels like they're getting value out of what we're doing. Because I'm like Kirk, I'm hyper aware of how expensive it is to build in specifically, especially in California, but just nowadays. So I don't want anybody to feel like they're going to add a feature that really wasn't worth spending the money on, and they regret it at the end of the job. And buildings are a long-term investment. So, you have to think of it in terms of you're recouping the value of what you're putting into it over, the next many years to come of when you're going to be using this space. And you really can't work in a vacuum, when you're approaching projects.
Yeah. And I think one of you said something about like the architect and contractor, they should be unified, present themselves as a unified front in presentation, but also, legitimately work that way. And it makes a huge difference because it's in that, let's say, three-legged stool where it's the client, the owner, the architect, and the contractor. If there isn't the architect and contractor working together, then it quickly becomes a game of two siblings playing one parent against, each other. And it only takes like one time for that to happen and for one of the parties to let that slide, and then you've kind of fucked things up. So in the past, when we've seen that happen, I stop it right there. I'm like, no, we're not doing this. Like if the client has, I don't know, I'm just making something up. The client called the contractor and asked them for something that's clearly our purview, I will call the client and be like, don't do that. Like, I'll phrase it differently, but like you can't. And most of the contractors we work with, in fact, all of them these days, they're like, they call us. They're like, hey, client called me with some weird questions. I don't know why they're calling me. I told them, don't ask me these things. I'm like, yeah. And because we all know, like, again, the projects take a long time. So if we get this weird, political game that happens, it becomes, first of all, super unpleasant. And also, frankly, from a professional standpoint, like I want to and have to work with these GCs and other professionals again in the future. The client might be a one-off. I can't afford to burn relationships with weird dynamics caused by someone who's going to play this quote game. And yeah, can we just all hold hands and get along?
It's so much easier.
Just make beautiful buildings.
But I did want to say briefly, so we've worked together a little bit on a project, or came close to it, I should say, and it unfortunately didn't happen. And in that instance, I would actually say that I think you guys performed greatly. I think we did well, but it's just the unfortunate reality of construction costs did not align with what a client wanted, and that's just it's what it is. But we've also worked together in other capacities. And one of the things that stood out to me at the very beginning when working with you, Christine, was how conscious you were of what it means to work with other people and trying to understand them. And it's like, I don't know how to describe it succinctly to listeners, but it was like levels beyond what I'm used to seeing and witnessing across the board, whether that be an architect, an engineer, a contractor, an owner's rep, whoever. Like, you were really, really genuinely concerned in making sure to understand everyone you were working with, understand everyone's goals, and saying, I think you actually asked us directly, how do you prefer to communicate? I'm like, that is so interesting, because these are all like subconscious questions we have, but we just never voice them. We, meaning everyone else, we just never voice them to the other party. And it was like, well, it makes sense though. If you're going to start this journey, like, why not ask point blank, like, what do you prefer? Are you cool with emails? Do you prefer text messages? Like, what is it? How do you want to do this?
Well, it's like reading a book and two characters aren't talking to each other, and you as the reader are aware of both sides, and you're just like, oh, all you need to do is say the one thing to the other person, right, and that'll cut out 300 pages of narrative tension. But I guess that's kind of how I'm viewing it.
Interesting.
I think I've met enough. I don't know. I think part of it is intuition. Part of it is I've just met a ton of people in my life, and I've worked in a ton of different capacities, doing a bunch of different things. So I've just, I don't know, I kind of have a skill of kind of seeing the underlying pulse of people.
Well, that's right, because actually I'm remembering now, you've worked with, you said in diverse capacities, but some of them had to do, like you were working in groups of people under stressful, what was it, under stressful, you're doing something that required a lot of people skills and communication skills in group settings, which is not maybe you can talk to that experience, but it's also not a set of skills and the experience that everyone goes through, right? Like a lot of architects, we live in silo. We sit at our desks.
I have probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I was working for a company that we were building recovery programming for addiction treatment. One of our biggest clients was the Bureau of Prisons. So, very complex human mentalities and just people from all walks of life in general. There was a large psychology aspect to it. And so I saw a lot of, I probably just met a lot of people through that job. I ran a yoga studio for a while, and I was a teacher, an instructor, which I think probably lends itself to a lot of my emphasis on communication, especially with teaching a movement. You don't want to risk injury and you have to meet people where they are. So there was that philosophy that comes into my work. I do a lot of aerial and acro, which is like joyful optimism and seeing, really encouraging people's creativity and just sense of play. I've been a photographer, I've been a designer, I've been project manager, I've, worked on ski
what the
hills.
heck haven't you done?
I'm a curious person.
Yeah, no, for sure. I legitimately think, though, really that all those experiences, specifically the ones where you're working with groups and teaching, like that, I'm sure that's where it comes from. Because again, I mean, how many professionals do we know that are architects or engineers or contractors, and they're good at the craft, but they just have never had that experience of like, oh, how the heck do I lead and work with successfully a group of 6, 8, 10, 12, 50, whatever it is, and deal with those dynamics. And if you haven't had that experience, it's a difficult thing to fully comprehend, I think. Did have another question, which was actually, what time is it? I feel like we burned through the time. Oh my gosh. What the heck? Are you guys good to go for like a second?
You can save some of this for our special after hours episode.
Okay. That sounds good. That sounds good. I guess my last
Me too.
My last kind of quick topic.
Kind of quick.
Well, kind of. We can always pick this up in a part 2. So we talked about, GCs, architects, and I suppose if there were to be a structure to this episode, what about clients and owners? And again, knowing that we don't want to go on for another hour, but like, what are some things that
What's your
you would
ideal
recommend clients do? Yeah, or the ideal client.
Kirk, do you want to take this or do you want me to?
Well, I think we just established that you have an innate skill of understanding people. I'm more of like a kind of, my brain's just like out in the world. One thing, David, I need to add, I think it's an innate thing for Christine to be able to ask those questions. She still surprises me, and I know her pretty well, I think. When we meet clients, she'll ask these questions where I'm like, well, that's just an assumption. I would never actually ask that. Like, I mean, good on you, but like, whoa. She asks our subs at the end of projects, what is it that we could have done better for you? I am so impressed. Yeah. I am so impressed.
You're like, Christine, we don't give a shit as long as they do their work and get paid. What are you asking these
some of
questions
them
for?
Uncomfortable. They're like, I wasn't expecting that. I think, just for me, just basic respect. Like knowing I started young, knowing I was hired as the kid with the baby face, and they're like, this guy's going to be cheaper than the other person. Because I really do care and I really like what I do. And there's a lot of money on the line. There's a lot of time. I've had clients who will text me on a Saturday and say, are you coming over today? it seems pretty often that by hiring us, I'm thinking of like random things that have been like, oh, that's like, for a while it used to stress me out when I was younger. And now I'm like, no, that's just a boundary that like they don't have for me. And that's fine. But thinking that because you hire a GC that we're also on call, if your floor isn't leaking or flooded, it's not an emergency. Do not bother me about, the wrong paint match. We started to put it up and stopped, and they're like texting us on a Saturday, like, look at this. The wall's half painted and it's two different colors. It's like, we're aware. That's why we stopped halfway, because it's the wrong color. Like stuff like that has happened where we're like 7:30 on a Saturday. Like, we know we'll be back Monday.
For me, briefly, you guys will identify with this. Read the emails that I write, please.
Oh my gosh.
I sit there and I take time and I organize and I bold action items so that you don't miss it. Like, one of my biggest pet peeves is when people request to be updated. So I take the time to update them frequently, and then they don't read what I'm updating. And then when they see me on the job next, they ask me these questions that I'd already answered for them in their email. And I'm just like,
it was in bold.
She takes a long time too. She'll put, 2 hours into an email if it's like the big update, and they're beautiful.
Yeah.
Nobody could write an email like this.
But we laugh, but of course it's like super important, and it does actually takes care, and you have to care about it when you're putting together a good email. So in a way, it sounds silly to talk about, but it's a huge, again, it's a small thing that recurs 1,000 times in a project, and if you can make it clear for the person, it's a huge difference. And if they don't read it, it also makes a huge difference. And it, maybe sort of in summary on that, it what you're saying, it reminds me that clients, they do have, and they should recognize this, they do have responsibilities beyond. They should be a nice person, yes. They should pay on time, yes. But they have legitimate responsibilities to absorb the information that we all provide them and make sound decisions to the best of their abilities and be timely. And that's actually probably the only things they need to do. And it does take time. It does take, attention span. But when clients fail on any of those 3 points, the project clearly suffered directly, right? Schedules impacted, budgets impacted, everything gets impacted. And I think it's easy for, I'm not blaming clients necessarily, well, they are to blame, but I'm not saying that I think it's an easy thing for clients to forget that they're like, no, you're one of the team members. You're not just the person paying the bills that's a puppeteer or just throwing out cash and saying, do your job. Like, you're in it with us because you have to make a ton of decisions, unless you're going to be, the type where it's like, this is vacation, I don't give a shit, make something cool, and I'll see you in a year or 2 years. Okay, that's fine. But aside from that, like, you're in it with everyone. And if you're not, I know, honestly, I guess being professional, it just, things quickly are either fall apart or we get limited. It's like all the professionals are fighting with one arm tied behind their back when the client is not on top of their own stuff.
I'm really
I think it's fair if they expect us to be professional and bring our A game to their job, that we have a similar standard and expectation of them.
We've thought about adding some literature about the owner, like for everybody, but kind of like as a subtle thing to the owner about like a code of conduct. I love that you use the responsibility. I'm thinking of a specific thing that happens on almost every job, and it's not the owner not giving us the decisions. It's the end of the project, the money's gone, the project's, weeks from finishing or months from finishing. It does not matter what day we say the project will be done. The owner will almost always try and move that up, thinking that we'll just squeeze it in quicker. And it doesn't work like that. And as soon as you move into that project, if you get your temp CFO, because they're like, they'll move furniture in, they'll move whatever into the house. And then we're getting texts on the weekends like, when are you coming back to do the blah, blah, blah? When are you coming back? And it's like, you live in the house now.
Yeah.
We can't, we had 3 subs in there who were in the middle of finishing, and it was apparently of the utmost importance that you moved in on this date that we never promised. Everybody has pulled their stuff out of the garage. Yeah. It's going to happen when it happens. And that's not enjoyable for the client. It's not enjoyable for us, because you just turned what could be another 2 weeks if we just had the place into 2 months.
Right.
We work from home. Like, can you guys come like this weekend? And it's like, no. Okay, well, we're gone in the afternoon on Tuesday. Can you come then? Well,
you have half an hour.
Because now we had full-time work during those 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You remove that, so now we're on another job.
I think that also...
It happens every job.
It also points to what Christine said earlier, which is when you get down to the last leg, which I feel like in projects, there are always like 6 last legs to a project.
Yeah.
It's just like never ending.
Have punch lists, have punch lists.
Yeah, yeah. And the closer you get to the actual final one, the more anxious everyone becomes. And it's just like everybody almost gets, they're just tired. You know, they're worn out. It's that final stretch. And like, I just want to be done. I want to cross the finish line. Can you just move it up closer to where I am?
Yeah.
Well, we do too. We want to be done just as bad as they do.
I agree with that sentiment. All right, so we burned through. This one went super quickly, which is always a great sign. The final question. Do you have a final question, Marina?
What is your favorite spot in Tahoe?
Oh, nice.
Oh.
I'm gonna, outside of climbing areas, because those are gonna be
outside of that one boulder that we know you in love with.
The secret one.
What a boulder.
No, I just saw this actually. I did not know this place existed. 5 minutes outside of South Lake, as you start heading up West Shore. Christine has known about this for years and was keeping it a secret. There's this place where there's a salmon run, actually salmon, trout, or whatever it is. There's like 2 or 3 different runs.
Oh.
Taylor Creek.
Oh, Taylor Creek.
They built this, it looks almost like a sweat lodge in the ground, and it's a little mini aquarium. You can walk down in this marshy area on this, concrete path with retaining walls, keeping the moisture out. Below the water line, it has a roof, and you walk inside and you're looking at the river underneath. You're in the water, and this area is full of beaver dams. It's like the most like ecologically like diverse area I've seen in Tahoe, and you can stand underwater and watch fish. Like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
I had no idea.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good
great one.
I like, we live by the airport in town, and we are walking distance from a river that people love to float in May. It's such a fun float. And I honestly, my answer is really simple. We've got 2 dogs, and I like walking down to the river and just, it's not one of the tourist spots. So it's like, usually I find a spot all to myself. And in the springtime, when the snow melts and people start floating the river, I usually see, like we've been sitting on this bank before, and our friends float by, and we're like, oh, hey, and it really feels like a small town community. And it's been switched where we've been on the river floating, and we'll see our friend mountain bike by. Very, very Tahoe experience, but it's such a relaxing spot. And then I have a lot of pilots and pilot-loving people in my family. So I grew up watching airplanes take off and land. And so I like being by the airport. And there's actually a restaurant/bar in our Tahoe airport that you can sit at. And we've gone all times a year to just sit and watch planes take off and land while we eat our, chicken noodle soup or something like that.
That sounds good.
I like that.
It's an understated place.
Yeah, that sounds really good.
I like that, like a slice of Tahoe right there.
As a side note, I discovered that floating was an activity in Tahoe. When someone first mentioned it, I was like, wait, what? Floating?
Oh, we'd love to take you floating.
Yeah, wait, have you been floating before?
I don't even know how to swim, so I mean, floating sounds good, but I need a life jacket too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know how to sing really well.
We'll give you a life jacket.
But yeah, no, I found the activity of floating that sounds marvelous. So yeah.
Conceptually, I like
the lazy rivers, is that inherently an American thing? You didn't grow up with like
people
lazy
don't float
rivers?
in the Seine?
I don't think people float in Europe.
They should.
Yeah, I don't think it's a thing there. They might. You know what? We might be onto something. We might have to import floating over there.
Floating around the Notre Dame with some wine and some cheese.
That would be
That would be
amazing.
the
What
best
the heck?
after hours special.
You have the water right there. How's no one?
Yeah, but the water is disgusting in Paris. You wouldn't want to
yeah.
float there.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, this was amazing. It went by super quick. We didn't even get to like a lot of things that we're going to talk about, so we'll save it for a part 2. So yeah, thanks guys for making the time, and we'll talk soon.
Good talking to you guys.
Thanks everyone for listening to this week's episode. If you want to support the show, then the best way to do that is to leave a review of it in the Apple Podcast app. You can also find us on Spotify and YouTube, where we have probably about half our episodes on YouTube these days, the interviews and some of the more informative conversations. And we're also on Instagram. Our handle is Second Studio Pod, and our website is secondstudiopod.com. So feel free to follow and check us out on all those places. If you have any guests that you'd like to have on the suggest for the show, or topics or questions or anything else, then you can reach out to us via those methods, or text us at the hotline, which is 213-222-6950, or leave a voicemail there. And I think that's it, right? Anything else?
Yeah, that's pretty good. No, that's it.
Okay, talk soon. Bye.
Bye-bye.